acquitted. There's no reason you can't do a book. But do you feel comfortable making a lot of money out of essentially what in the end was an incident that cost the lives of other humans?
My Lord, what is wrong with him? You know, Piers Morgan is one of those guys that I do have some respect for, and I think he could be a good journalist when he is not biased. The way he's addressing the Hamas and Israel, bringing both parties together, allowing them to debate their views and kind of like trying to get to the heart of the matter. I appreciate that, the heart of the matter. It's a good thing, but in this interview with Kyle Rittenhouse, the young man who had to defend himself, and as a result of that, he had to unalive 2 people, which is a horrible experience for anybody to go through. I don't know what I would do if I were in his place, so I'm not in a position to condemn or judge. But my thing is, the way this interview was conducted, Piers Morgan, if you ever see this reaction video, this was the worst interview you've ever done. Look at how this goes. You will see what I mean. Link in the description below. Like and subscribe to the page. If you're happy to be new, click the bell icon for more. Let's get to this video.
My next guest is one of the most controversial figures in recent American history. Kyle Rittenhouse pleaded self-defense when he was charged with murdering 2 people during the Wisconsin Black Lives Matter riots of 2020. And the jury agreed. For some, Rittenhouse has become a heroic standard-bearer of the Second Amendment and Americans' rights to bear arms. For others, he got off because of privilege. Now, 2 years after his trial ended, he's written a book called Acquitted to tell his side of the story. And he joins me now live from Florida. Kyle Rittenhouse, thank you very much indeed for joining me. First of all, let me just ask you, if you had your time again, would you, age 17, have put an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle around your neck and gone purposefully down to where these protests were happening, knowing what was going to transpire?
Question number 1, wrong. This is not where you should start. That's already a bad start. First of all, you trying to understand the man's story, and you asking question to somewhat put him in a very uncomfortable position. There's a place for that. But when you begin like this, that's just a bad start. It's just a bad start. And he has a book written. You should be asking questions about what exactly is his message in the book that he wants people to know about. What part of the story that we do not understand that he would like for others to understand by selling this book. So, Piers Morgan, question number 1, that's already problematic. Let's keep going.
Well, Piers, thank you for having me on. With hindsight being 20/20 as it always is, no, I wouldn't have gone, but that doesn't change the fact that I was attacked and I defended myself. I was there to help people and provide first aid, and that's what I did. I'm on video that night providing first aid and helping people, and then being ambushed and cornered and forced to use my rifle to defend myself.
You killed 2 people and you wounded a 3rd. How do you feel about that?
That's just one of those. That is such an inhumane question because you're interviewing person. How do you think a person feels about unaliving people, like killing people? Like, that's not something you go around, at least the average person. We don't go around promoting ourselves after this is done. Now, I know there's some people who are cruel enough to celebrate that. But the vast majority of us, when we do something like this, even in the case of self-defense, it's nightmarish. It's problematic. The dilemma, the harshness, the nightmares. So the question is so dumb and inconsiderate and unthoughtful because you're not really trying to get to the heart of anything here that we haven't already heard before. And he's not really addressing the purpose of Kyle Rittenhouse being in his interview. This is completely wrong.
Well, Piers, they attacked me. They left me with no choice. I have nightmares every night of being attacked and being ambushed and them trying to steal my gun and pointing guns at my face. It's not an easy thing to do, but I did what I had to do to stay alive, and if I didn't, I would be dead.
Yeah, listen, you were acquitted, and many in America believe that you had the absolute right to defend yourself. I'm just curious, on a human level, you're very young even now. What are you, 20 years old now?
Yes, sir.
And you've killed 2 human beings and wounded a third. I just wonder how that feels.
Piers Morgan is out of his mind. like these British journalists. I don't know if it's something about the British culture, and I don't know if that's what it's about. But sometimes they can be so out of touch. They don't seem to understand the American culture at all. But he could be so good, but he is so bad right now. This is like the worst interviews ever conducted.
I don't think that's an appropriate question to ask how it feels. It's not an easy thing to do. It's something I live with every single day. It's nightmares I have. It's something that I have to deal with. I have to deal with the PTSD and the trauma from having to do that.
It's not appropriate to ask that question, my friend. And he already asked it. So 3 questions back to back are all completely asked out of context, irrespective of the man's purpose on the show. Is this what is this? Is this a judge kind of like doing the bidding of a judge? Or is he trying to please some masses here? I don't necessarily understand. What is the purpose of this interview? What exactly is Piers Morgan trying to get to?
Right. I mean, but it seems to me your emotions are more about you and your trauma because your life was being threatened and that side of it, rather than the question I'm asking, which is simply on a human level, how do you feel about being so young and yet having on the record for the rest of your life now that you...
Oh, my Lord. This guy is out of his mind. He already answered the questions 3 times already. So you keep asking the same question. And the man tells you it's nightmarish, it's difficult, and it's inappropriate to be asking this question in the first place. Regardless of human level, it's not one of those things you really want to lead with. Piers Morgan, what in the world are you doing here?
Took the lives of 2 people, regardless of the circumstances.
And like I just said, it's something I deal with every day. I deal with the PTSD and the trauma and the nightmares. It's not easy to deal with it.
Your book, presumably you're going to make money from this book. Do you feel comfortable making money from this, which ultimately is a tragic story? I repeat, you were acquitted. There's no reason you can't do a book. But do you feel comfortable making a lot of money out of essentially what in the end was an incident that cost the lives of other humans?
My Lord, what is wrong with him? Like, he is out of his mind. How about... what is the purpose of your book? What is the story you want people to hear about? There's a lot of confusion about your situation. You want your side of the story to be heard. What are some things people can expect from the book? Like, how about those types of questions, Piers? About questions about figuring out why he was in such a difficult position that he had to pull the trigger. Which I'm not here trying to justify the man. All I'm simply doing is this whole interview is wrong in the way that it is being conducted. This is ridiculous.
Well, I'm not writing the book to make money. I'm writing the book to tell the story of what happened. I'm trying to change the narrative that media keeps putting out there that I'm some type of white supremacist, racist person, when that's just not true. I'm a 20-year-old kid who was put in a situation to where I was forced to defend myself, and I'm writing to put that into a book. I wrote a story and put that in a book so I can share that with everybody so they can understand what I went through, how my childhood was growing up, and the difficulties I deal with today. And you can check out the book at rittenhousebook.org if you want to read it and learn the truth for yourself.
Great answer. Great answer. I'm writing the book to tell my side of the story. It's not about making money, but it's good to make some money in the process because from what I've heard, his life has been destroyed. He can't get a job. Everywhere he goes, he's having an issue. Nobody likes the guy, and he's a young man. He's made a decision where he had to either his life, the people who were putting him in a difficult position, he had to make a choice. You can agree or disagree with it, But does he have a right to exist, to tell his story, to talk, to be heard? Yes. So let's respect that.
How do you feel that you became a hero to many on the far right, kind of made you their poster boy?
Oh, my Lord. Piers Morgan, he's here to promote a book, to tell his story. Now, he's a hero on the far right. Oh, my Lord, what is wrong with him?
Well, Piers, I'm not a hero. I did what I had to do to defend myself. There are countless Americans every day that defend themselves. And it's not a heroic thing to do. It doesn't make you a villain, but it doesn't make you a hero. It's doing the right thing to stay alive. If I didn't defend myself, I wouldn't be here talking today.
You were 17 at the time. You were too young to legally acquire the gun that you used.
That's not true.
It's not true?
That is not true. Wisconsin statute says a person between the ages of 16, 17 can carry a long rifle with a barrel longer than 16 inches. That's Wisconsin law, and the judge dismissed that charge.
Fact checked. This is why you gotta know what you're talking about, Piers. Like, this is why you gotta go do your homework before you start asking questions that you don't even know. Like, you live in Great Britain. You don't know all the laws in the United States, right? So you gotta come with a lot of curiosity. You gotta come with like a little child. Like, and say, okay, here's what's going on. You were too young to acquire a weapon. Like, what did you get the talking point for? This is why you gotta get the book. Go get the book and listen to the man's story and get it all fixed in your mind. For me, I understand the point. The laws are the laws. It makes perfect sense. If I were in his place, I probably would do the same thing. That's why I would have never put myself in that place. I remember when they were doing all these Black Lives Matter, I'm like, I ain't going to none of it. None of it. I want nothing to do with any of it. It just doesn't look right. It's not making sense. This stuff could be manipulated. I said, you know what? I'm not going to put myself under this level of emotional up and down. Before you know it, you make the right, the wrong decision. And next thing you know, here goes your life. Not me. I did not show up. I'm not holding a sign, and I'm not putting it on my Facebook page. None of that. And I'm not going there to defend anybody's business. If I had a business, I will defend my business. But I'm not going to be a vigilante. We're not playing this game. I'll be praying. I'll be talking to the people. I'll hear your stories, and then I'm going to move on. I did not want to be a part of that nonsense because this is kind of where it could lead you to. I think Kyle Rittenhouse, there's a story. There's something to learn from that experience. I don't think he's a bad kid. At the same time, I don't believe going there was the right decision. I don't think so. But did he have to defend himself? He had the right to do it. Absolutely. Yes, he did. But those questions from Piers Morgan are ridiculous. Okay, they still are ridiculous.
Okay, so you were... let me ask you, look, I'm in the country right now. I've talked about this many times, both here and in America, and I learned Americans want to handle their own gun culture the way they want to handle it. I respect that. But let me ask you, do you think it's right that 17-year-olds in America, in Wisconsin, should be able to carry around semi-automatic rifles like an AR-15?
Wrong question again. Oh, this guy. Oh, my goodness.
Our founding fathers were very intentional when they wrote the Constitution. They didn't put an age limit on how old you have to be to exercise the Second Amendment.
But they did say it would be part of a well-regulated militia.
They also didn't put an age in it, and we have the right to bear arms. It's our right as Americans to possess these arms, to carry these firearms, and to use them to protect ourselves.
How do people treat you, Carl, when you walk around now?
Well, there is some harassment. I'm constantly having photos taken of me. I'm constantly receiving death threats on social media. And it's just something that is part of my life now. Having pictures taken of me everywhere I go and the constant harassment and death.
All right, to Piers Morgan's credit, that was one decent question. How do people treat you walking around? Sure, that's not an easy thing. Walking around as a person who has been maligned by the media. Yeah, it's pretty tough. I can only imagine. So that was one decent question. I'll say that.
My life now, having pictures taken of me everywhere I go and the constant harassment and death threats.
obviously by doing a book and promoting it in the way that you are on national television around the world, you're going to make yourself even more famous, infamous, whatever you want to call it.
Piers Morgan, you are out of your mind. He already told you he's trying to tell his story. The goal is to erase the negativity, the misconception, the propagandas, the label. That's the goal of the book. Piers Morgan, where is your brain cells?
Is that something you're aware of, that you're deliberately, consciously doing that?
I'm aware that it's going to bring some more notoriety to my name and make me more known, but I think it's worth that risk to share my story and share what happened, just in the hopes that maybe somebody else who goes through a similar situation or faces other trials in their life, they can read it and they can understand that they're not alone and that this happens to other people with the misjustice that does happen in America.
Okay, Carl Rittenhouse, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Piers Morgan, this was your worst interview. You didn't really take into consideration the man's perspective on any issue. You asked about 8 questions. 7 of them were horrible. You did not promote the man's book. You did not care about the message that was in the book. You didn't really want to hear his side of the story, but you were talking about a bunch of stuff that really didn't have much to do with the goal that he had. You know, for people who's been through a situation such as that, I will say, for all people, by all means, you know, cast your cares upon him, because the kid is talking about, I got this trauma that I'm dealing with, my life is being turned upside down. Whether you think he's famous or not, whether you think he's free, innocent or guilty, that's not the point. He's telling you, man, my life has been destroyed by these decisions that I had to make. I don't think I would have never placed myself in that situation. I can say that, but again, I'm not in his shoe. I don't understand the past, the reason why he did it, what motivated him. So there's a lot that you don't really understand here. So there's very little judgment that I can come up with. But I'll tell you what, whatever your anxieties, your problems, your pains and sorrows and confusion. Oh, Piers Morgan, that was a horrible interview. Jesus says, cast all your cares upon him because he cares for you. The other thing is, men like Piers Morgan, they need to do their homework. Sanctify the Lord in your heart and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you of the hope that is in you, in weakness and fear. Carl Rittenhouse was ready to answer these questions, and he kept his composure, but you could tell he was uncomfortable because Piers Morgan he likes to push people over the edge a little bit, but sometimes it's completely unnecessary. I think he does it just to look like I'm not like the rest of the mainstream media, and I like to ask the difficult questions and I sound like I'm very balanced and thoughtful with my ways of addressing certain issues, but I think it's not always necessary. You can simply ask the questions and allow people to answer and listen carefully to the man's perspective. Try to understand where he's coming from. It's not that difficult to do. Well, you're gonna put away your biases in order for that to be done. Anyway, much more could be said. What is your thought about this interview? From my perspective, this was the worst one I've ever seen from Piers Morgan. I've seen him done great interviews, but this one here was like, what? Guilt trip? Wrong questions. Out of context. No understanding about the laws in Wisconsin. Like, what are you doing, boy? Anyway. Share your thought and perspective with me. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.